Hello, everyone, and welcome to CRE Power Hour. It's so great to have you. My name is Lisa Marie Wand, and my co-host, who's not here today, is the one and only Stephanie Gillison. And together, we've spent the last 2 decades growing and scaling our commercial real estate businesses. And we want to bring you a special space here where you can meet the movers and shakers in the commercial real estate industry and learn alongside the best at CRE Power Hour. Today, we have 2 guests. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We have Bob Drury and Heather Rio from the amazing Crexi auction team. So let's get right to it. Hi, Bob. Hi, Heather. Welcome. And thank you so much for being on CRE Power Hour.
Hi, Lisa Marie. Thank you very much for having us. We're thrilled to be here.
Yay.
Yes. Thank you so much, Lisa Marie.
So Heather, you're up on the chopping block first, as I understand. And so tell us about, give us the highlights of your career and how you ended up doing the magical stuff that you do at Crexi auction team.
Yes. So I have a very diverse background. So I started as a vet tech, so if that gives you any idea. And now I'm in commercial real estate. So Crexi, I joined them 2022 or 2021. And so I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and it's pretty exciting. I knew nothing about commercial real estate before, learned a ton. And then obviously learning about how auctions, are in this space and how it can really benefit, any of these sellers and brokers that are trying to get some deals done. So I love it. I love what I do, and I'm hoping to stay for a long time and pivot through the commercial real estate industry.
So you sound like a fellow animal lover. I have my fur babies. How did you make the huge leap from the veterinary world to commercial real estate?
Yeah, so it's very complex.
Okay.
But my journey, that's where my journey began. But I've had a few different positions. And so before going to college, that was what my dream was to be, a vet tech. And then I managed the animal hospital. And then I just got to a point where unless I was going to be a veterinarian, I was going to stay in that position. So I went to school after, going to school, came back to Arizona. I went to school at University of Miami, the U. And I, just wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I did a few sales stuff like headhunting. And that was really fun. But then, COVID hit eventually and I got let go. And so my stepdad actually was like, hey, have you thought about commercial real estate? And I'm like, no, not at all. Tell me about it. And he's like, well, he had started a technology brokerage, you could say, ComLoan. So I'm not sure that's local here to Scottsdale, but they are nationwide. And that's
Mitch.
Yes.
Mitch
yes.
And I know him very well.
Oh,
yes.
Small world.
Yeah.
It is a small world. I can call him anytime. I love Mitch.
Yes, you should. Yes. I love Mitch too.
Oh my gosh. We need to have him on here. He's been on our show. We should have him again so he can give us all the dirt on Heather.
Yes. Yeah, you could totally. But I adore him and I worked for him for a long time. I think for me, Crexi came and personally it was more of a fit for my lifestyle. In life, I've got kids too. So we're always, running around. So Crexi came and, just through the process of interviewing, they must have identified, I'd be a good fit for auctions and, so kind of learned about it. And now I'm kind of off on my own trying to, kind of shake up Arizona for using Crexi auctions.
That's awesome. And all my interactions with you specifically and with your team have been phenomenal. You have great energy and you've got that drive to help brokers and agents get over that hurdle of having the conversation with their clients about doing an auction and which are the best properties, that will really thrive in the auction environment. I know you've helped me with that. You've done deals with Stephanie and then we've almost done deals, but hopefully we're moving more in that direction. But I love the process that your team has. So thank you for introducing yourself. And now we're going to hear from the one and only curly-haired Bob Drury.
I don't know if I can follow that. And just if anybody wants to ever meet Heather in Phoenix, just go to any networking event there is. It has to do with real
I'm
estate,
usually there.
and she'll be there. So, and introduce yourself to her. So, well, thanks for the opportunity. I don't know what just happened there.
You're frozen. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. I think my computer shut down. Sorry. So just a little background on me. I was a broker at Marcus & Millichap for about 5 years. And then I ran acquisitions and development for a regional investment company. We bought value add retail, primarily Western US. We bought 150 properties or so over a 15-year period. And then in 2011, I left there and I found myself with an opportunity that I didn't think was viable at the time in the online auction space at one of our competitors. And I actually, which we will remain nameless at this point, but I helped start the commercial group there. I ran business development for primarily the Western US for about 8.5 years. I left there 4 or 5 years ago to start the auction platform here at Crexi, pretty much by myself at that point. We've got, I don't know, last count, 28 people on our team now. And we've sold about $4 billion worth of commercial assets in that 4 or 5 year period. And I think I have the best platform in the business, and I know I have the best team in the business. All of us have been in this space for the most part, with the exceptions of some of our rock star new hires like Heather, for about the last 10 or 12 years. And so we've all sold thousands of commercial assets in the online auction space. And so I would put us up person to person, best in the business.
That's wonderful. You've got a lot of experience. I know we talked about how you started at M&M. And so everybody that's watching live or is listening or watching later, Bob lives in Newport Beach. So, we're about ready to face winter here. So I might have to come and camp out on your couch for a while because I'm not ready.
Yeah, no problem. We can, I can show you all the hot spots.
So let's transition. Although the auction space in commercial real estate has been out there for a while, and there's not very many names in the commercial auction space, I feel like a lot of agents and brokers or even investors that are watching or listening later don't quite know how to navigate or, how to start the process, or, that seems so different, unknown, or risky. What I'd like the two of you to, in tandem, talk about is what are the big benefits of auctioning your property and how you help those happen.
Yeah, that's a great point because, I've been doing this for like 12 years now, right? And when we've made so much progress in the last 10 years as far as it being accepted. The commercial real estate business has really been one of the last big businesses to go from offline to online. We've made it so complicated to get transactions done historically. And it's taken a long time, for people to embrace that, hey, we can get these done in 75 days, right? Start to finish. We don't have to spend months negotiating contracts. People will execute in this space when you give them real timelines. And I think, so for me, we've even seen a couple of the major brokerage companies have now actually introduced an auction services line to their clients. 2 of the largest commercial brokers in the country now have that as an additional service, in addition to their normal things like multifamily or retail or office industrial. They've actually hired people to run that auction services groups. And so, I've always said people buy $5 million cars in auctions. People buy artwork. People buy wine. Why has real estate always been sort of
Pokemon cards?
Yeah. The stigma has always been, it must be a foreclosure or it must be owned by a bank. And it's really not true. It sounds cliche, but we really do sell best what people want most. So we sell a lot of distressed properties, but we also sell a lot of very high quality, assets.
Well, and what I wanted to point out is something that you said, and Stephanie and I come back around to this a lot, and that is, and one of the reasons that we do this show twice a month is because commercial real estate has historically been in the dark ages. I mean, even now, they're just, like you said, starting to really come more online, other than, having some marketing platforms that are specific for commercial real estate. But other than that, I've been doing this 18 years. It used to be like, oh, you have a paper flyer and you have it posted on a commercial marketing site somewhere. And a lot of the deals were being done just between brokers or investment clubs. And it was really not out in the light like it is now. And a lot of times our clients know a lot about the market because they have some more access to reports from, CBRE or NAI, and they can go online and look at properties. So it's great that you said that this is part of the moving our business out of the old school way of doing things and into the modern day way of doing things. And
that's a great comment because, the internet has kind of democratized the process, right? So back when I was doing acquisitions at Red Mountain in the early days, like if I wanted to go to Phoenix, for example, if I wanted to go look for property in Phoenix, I literally had to go to Phoenix for 2 weeks and rent a car and drive all over town and call every broker in town from their signs on the, on the street and go meet with them and, with my map and try to figure out now, I mean, with the internet, right, we can search markets anywhere in the country. It's all online. And, as a buyer, the auction process really levels the playing field, because as long as you have the money and you're willing to pay the highest price, you can compete with anybody, right? And so, back in the old days, if we weren't necessarily in the market and we wanted to make offers on some stuff, if people didn't know us or we didn't know the brokers or we weren't kind of dialed in, we weren't going to win those properties, right? And so
yes,
now Bob can
true.
compete with Blackstone or Starwood or somebody like that. As long as I'm willing to pay the highest price, it doesn't matter, as long as I have the money, right?
Yes.
Because the bids are all anonymous. And so once the buyers get used to what we're doing, they really tend to like it, because they can either, if the bid goes too high, you don't have to bid. But if it's in your price range, I mean, you can buy any property you want. Whereas it used to be a lot more difficult to do that. So
you made a really good point. So I cover the whole state of Nevada. So, Las Vegas, Reno, really only major markets here, and also in California. And I find I have a challenge, even with my sparkling personality, making connections with brokers in other areas, because part of the, that dark ages idea is that the mentality is the same way. So they're like, well, you're in my territory and I'm going to do this whole deal. And the paperwork, I did a lease renewal for one of our corporate clients in Las Vegas not that long ago. It was just like a 2-year lease renewal for a big international company in Las Vegas. It took us 6 or 7 months to go back and forth just on the paperwork on a lease renewal. And so my perception as a managing partner and a market leader is that sometimes the brokers can cause some of the problems. I mean, sometimes it's the clients, but it sounds like, at least from the conversations that we've had about different properties, that you can also level the playing field when it comes to the paperwork piece of it too, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Let's
we've
talk
made
about
that way more complicated than it should be.
As a general statement,
I say we. The real estate business
Yeah.
has made that way more complicated than it should be.
Yes. And so this becomes a streamlined process. And Heather, one of the things that you're great is putting together, like a pro forma for a property. So if I bring one to you and then your team looks at that property in the market and talk about that process of coming up with reserve price and the strategy and how your team specifically markets above and beyond what a broker like myself or Stephanie would be doing? Because we're still doing our job in tandem with the auction team, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you talk about
So
that?
we have nationwide exposure, and we don't market globally, but because our site is open, we really do get people internationally that either own real estate in the US, or, maybe they're purchasing in the US. And the exposure of having a global reach is kind of the benefit of using Crexi. And obviously, for you, it would be partnering with somebody, nationwide. I mean, if you're purchasing with a client or you're selling with a client, we'd have to have a broker of record. And that's something that we can assist with. We can say, hey, I've done a deal with this broker, and that would be beneficial to you, to get the exposure as well, in other markets. And so the campaigns that we run, I mean, we have our pro membership. They get a lot of marketing dollars towards them to just market the listings they have on our site. So through the auction, when we go to market these are, I mean, it's about 10 times the amount of marketing that we do for just a traditional on our site. And so, it is something, if anybody was going to look at the asset, they're going to see it through our campaign, and if they're interested, they're going to get registered. So a lot of times, because we are doing these auctions about every 2 weeks, and so we kind of get a sense of what's currently selling and at what price, and what are the buyers doing? What do they think? So we have kind of a pulse. So as far as reserve pricing and, valuating, we'll have our team look at it. We're going to say, hey, we just sold one of these. So we have a buyer pool. And so we're going to agree upon, whatever that reserve price is. Now, if it's something that this is going to be challenging, not that we can't get it done, but we might find the diamond in the rough. Now it comes down to pricing. So as long as, seller is motivated, the 4Ds, dissolution of a corporation, the debt, divorce, and death, those are big reasons to go through and utilize an auction. So depending on the motivation too, if they're, for valuation, we'll valuate the seller. Are they motivated?
We do rely a lot on our broker partners to help us with that, right? Because
Yeah,
I mean, our whole business is really built around, providing service to the brokerage community and tools and things like that. And so we rely pretty heavily on you guys, on that side of it as well.
that makes it nice to collaborate with you, because I know you are a broker friendly team. I know that for sure. And that there's a trust and rapport that's built. And so you're talking about motivators. People are motivated by either pleasure or pain. And so you ask a very similar question to what I do when I'm working with a new client is why? Why are you wanting to buy this asset? Why are you wanting to sell or exchange this asset? And it's really important that we know the motivation so that we can help them. And in some cases, if there's the D's that you're talking about, there's a sense of urgency, and the Crexi auction platform provides that sense of urgency and that buildup of excitement to the auction day. And then, for the time of the auction, and you're all just like, it's like watching a horse race, right? It's
Yeah.
it's fine. And so I really enjoy that about your team. And the other thing I wanted to clarify is, Heather, you mentioned Crexi Pro. I'm a Crexi Pro member, so is Stephanie. So that means we pay a membership fee, and in return, we get certain tools and access to use on the Crexi.com platform. And then the auction services are above and beyond that. And clarify for everyone watching, the buyer pays the fees, correct? For the auction?
Yes. So no costs to the seller or the broker. Broker is still paid their fee with their client out of escrow. And then we're collecting our fee from the winning bidder, and we get paid out of escrow too. So everyone has skin in the game to get the deal done. So yeah.
And you do not have to have a pro account in order to utilize the auction services either, because we're contracting with the seller. They have to agree to sign our marketing agreement, which allows us to market and execute the auction and the sale, your commission agreement still stays intact. So you get paid your full fee just like you would in a normal market transaction. We don't take any assets without a broker engaged. It's very, very important to the success of our process to have a good broker involved.
Well, that's great to hear because brokers love to get paid.
As we all do.
Us too.
Yeah, we all do.
I think, I always talk about how I work a lot and don't get paid because in our business, a lot of times transactions fall through, as you know, Bob, from your many years on the brokerage and development side. That's the nice thing too about auctions. What percentage of auctions would you say, of the properties that you put out there, what percentage of those successfully sell and close?
65 to 70%.
That's pretty
the
good.
The ones that don't sell, typically it's a price point issue, or like land is difficult sometimes depending on where it is. I mean, we've been extremely successful selling land in Las Vegas, but very high demand, limited inventory. One seller really controls most of the vacant property there. But land is a challenge sometimes if it's more remote. Although, we do execute pretty good in that space, but we're probably less successful on land than we are in the other asset classes, just because of the nature of land, entitlements and that sort of thing, right? Asking people to close in a 30-day window on an all cash basis, sometimes on a piece of land outside of Reno or, in Sparks, Nevada, necessarily is not, it's a little more difficult. But the other asset classes, yeah, we do pretty well in that category.
That's great. And then talk about what sets Crexi Auctions apart from your limited competitors.
Heather, you want to take that or you want me to take that?
You could take that one since you know the competitors.
Yeah, I think the process that we have is very similar to all of our competitors. We all kind of do it the same way, market for the same amount of time. We run the auctions over a 48-hour period. But, the real differentiator for us is our Crexi marketplace, right? So we have 180 to 200,000 for sale listings up on the website at any given point in time. We have another 500,000, 700,000 for lease listings. We're getting 3.5 to 4 million web hits a month through our website. And so we really have a legitimate marketplace, and we have everybody participating in our database, from institutional buyers to 1031 buyers to regional buyers, guys in a pickup truck buyers. I mean, we have auction buyers. And I think the other thing too is all of that is all in one website. Like one of our competitors, they have basically 3 or 4 different companies that all operate separately, and the platforms aren't integrated. So they don't generate the same amount of activity through their websites as we do, because we have a much broader marketplace.
Those websites are siloed, and so they only get less traffic.
And by virtue of having 200,000 listings on the website live at any given point in time, I mean, you can imagine the data that we gather all the time, and we have buyers. And the other thing too is, as a buyer or somebody looking for properties, it doesn't cost you anything to use the Crexi website. We don't charge the buyers anything. One of our competitors does, right? And so, or they show you limited stuff if you're a buyer. All you have to have is a Crexi account, which is free. And you can log in and you can see any asset you want to. You can look at the due diligence. You can get the broker's phone numbers. You can do searches. You can put profiles in our website so that we'll send you, and you probably get more emails from Crexi than you want. But, that's what makes us different than the other guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really compete with that at all. So the process is similar. Let me ask you this. How is artificial intelligence impacting commercial real estate auctions?
That's a great question. And I think, we do have all these machine learnings. It helps us track, who all these buyers are and who's helping us find the right buyer for these assets, right? And our marketing is pretty strategic around that. We don't just blast all of our full database, right? We try to pull data and statistics on people that are searching for these similar type of assets, anybody that's looked at, similar type assets in the region, anybody that's bought or sold. So yeah, I think there's quite a bit of that going on behind the scenes, and I think we're pretty much cutting edge there as far as how we find the right buyers for these assets, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know anything about the technical part of it. That's just my explanation about how it works. Heather might have more comments on how it really works, but I think
it's following each user around our site. So when we go to auction, we're going on the back end and scraping those users so that we can directly market to them during the marketing period of the auction. And it's like we're sending out like 300,000 emails during that period of 45 days, because we really have to find that buyer. So we have to use technology to find the buyer. And so that's kind of what we've implemented in our site.
Well, interesting story, right? We just sold an asset in Southern California, and the broker that was involved is in this region of Southern California is the best investment broker out there, right? And he's been out there for a really long time. And he's out in a place we call the Inland Empire, and he has a boutique firm there, but he really is pretty dominant in that market, and he knows everybody. He knows everybody that's doing anything. And we sold this former Mervyn's building, and the 5 bidders that we had, he didn't know any of them. They weren't in his database.
Interesting.
They weren't.
Yeah.
They weren't on his radar. He had never dealt with them before. Right. And so he was pretty surprised about that, because he literally knows everybody that's active in that market. Right. So
that's a really powerful story, Bob and Heather, because what that means is the technology and tools that you're using to support and implement the Crexi auction platform is bringing bidders and potential buyers to the table that would not have had that property in their awareness necessarily without the tools that you're using. So if you have a broker that's dominant in a particular geographical area, and they don't know any of the bidders, that's a really good story.
I do take that back. They did know one of them. It was the next door neighbor. So I forgot that. But the other 5 were not on the radar, and the winning bidder was not in his database.
Yeah, that's a powerful story. And what was the price point on that bid?
It was about $5 million.
Okay.
$5+ million.
That's great.
A little bit more.
So if that seller did not use your Crexi auction platform, who knows what the timeline would have been to sell that property?
It's been on the market for a couple of years. They've been trying to figure out what to do with it for a while.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about today that you mentioned in your last meeting is this mega auction that you completed in Las Vegas. So you want to, obviously confidentiality, but probably most of it's public knowledge now.
Public.
So this is a great story to tell, and I want to hear it from both of you. Success story. Extraordinary.
Thanks for the opportunity on that. So, largest single online auction transaction ever. The Beltway Business Park is what it's called. 350 acres, 4.5 million square feet of improvements, Class A institutional quality office industrial retail, 18 different ground leases, extremely complicated. And so the reserve was 155 million, and it sold for 205 million.
Oh, wow.
And the other part that was institutional buyer at a 5 cap, basically, right? The interesting part was we had over 300 confidentiality agreements signed in 32 days, right? And, we had 30,000 plus page views. We had, 3,000 leads. We ended up having 5 institutional buyers. And yeah, it went extremely well. We got the whole thing done in 74 days, start to finish. The buyer actually closed a day early, right? And again, very complicated. So yeah, that was a big milestone. That was 2 years ago. Market's a little different today, but I think it just goes to the fact that the myth about we only sell distressed assets is just not true, right? I mean, you can't argue with that, and it's a big property, huge number, obviously, and I think we generated, significant activity around that, and it was very complicated. 18 different ground leases. It was not easy. We had 1,500 documents in the due diligence vault, right? So, we had big institutional buyers, with partners like Goldman Sachs and
heavy hitters.
Yeah. And so, and they all got comfortable enough with the space because, they were still going to have to sign contracts the same day as the auction and do all their due diligence up front. And sometimes getting an institutional buyer to do that is a challenge. And so, I think it just demonstrates the power of the platform and the reach that we have.
Yeah, that is definitely a huge feather in your cap for an auction of that size, and to be the first platform of the minimal commercial auction platforms that are out there to say we closed the largest auction ever on record in the United States.
Single asset auction. There have been some portfolio sales, primarily notes, that were a little bit bigger than that, but
so we'll clarify.
This was a single asset.
Single asset. Yeah,
auction.
That's phenomenal. And what did your team learn? What's the biggest lesson you learned from going through that large, complicated process in really record time? Did you say 74 days?
74 days,
days?
Yeah, from the time we started the marketing, ran the auction, and closed. However, what most people don't know too, I spent a year before that working on it, though, right? Getting it in a position to take that to the platform. But what I learned the most is just the power of our platform. The activity we got, and typically we have a what we call a client manager, which is a transaction manager that kind of runs these assets during the auction process. This one was so complicated, though, that I had to be the point of contact there. And so I was having to deal with all these leads and stuff, which I don't normally do. And I was just
back in the trenches, Bob.
I was shocked, at the activity. And it's like, how am I going to talk to all these people, right? It's like just the power of the platform that we brought to that really high quality asset was what I learned and found the most impressive during that whole thing. So.
How about you, Heather? You have anything you want to add about that big transaction?
I was not with Crexi, so I got to hear about it when I came on, and I'm like, well, how do I do that? Come on, Bob. How do we get one of those deals?
I'm doing my best to try to get you there. So
yeah, I need that one. Yes, I need something similar.
The big fish. And Bob makes a really good point, which is it's kind of that hurry up and wait thing. There's a lot of due diligence and legwork to be done to sometimes to get an asset to the point where it's ready to go on the auction, but your team was prepared to work on it. And then all of a sudden it's like a rocket ship, right? It goes.
It takes off. Yeah.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that make that happen on our team, the marketing team, our transaction team that handles contracts and closings and all of that. They don't get a lot of credit sometimes, and they're kind of behind the scenes on a lot of this, but without all of them, the whole auction thing really is a team sport. There's there's no superstars here. If we don't have the whole team working together, it doesn't work very well. And so I always like to shout out to them as much as I can, because they're very, very important to the process. So.
Yes, that's great that you did that, because we don't succeed alone. It always takes our support system and the people around us. And I have a feeling you may have had a little bit more curly gray hair if you didn't have all your support staff helping you on that.
Oh, for sure.
Curly gray hair.
I have some, but
no, you have a lot of hair. So Bob showed us a picture from a few years ago where he had this curly, natural curly, thick.
I was 20 years old, so it was a while ago.
Hey, I'm trying to be like really nice here and just say it was just the other day.
I appreciate that.
After she said that you would have more gray hair.
Because he only has a little.
I don't have that. I got just in my face,
Yeah, your goatee.
It's been great having you two on CRE Power Hour today. So much fun. And what my takeaway is from every time that I've dealt with Heather or her team and having you here today is the level of professionalism that you have, the knowledge, and of course the legacy of all of the auctions that have been closed. You gave us a number earlier. How much was that? 4 billion?
It's about 4 billion. Yeah, approximately.
4 billion in auctions. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of experience on the team. And what I will say is that
that's only since we've been at Crexi, though. A lot of the team members, we've all worked together for the previous, 8 or 9 years. So, I mean, it's that number's way bigger, as far as how many transactions that we've all done as a team. So
the same team. Yeah,
pretty much the same team. Right.
A very, very seasoned team. And for those of you watching or listening, I will tell you that the Crexi auction team is available to chat with you about a property, even if it doesn't happen to go to auction right then, or you revisit later or revisit another property. They're really great about helping with the conversation with your client, with your seller, because this process is most likely, foreign to them.
Yeah.
Before I start talking to my clients now about the auction opportunity in the very beginning of the listing process. And so that way, because I know that I have that tool in my toolbox, and that I can just reach out to Heather or Bob and get the conversation started. They'll take a look at the property and say, here's what we think as far as pricing and what's going on in the market and all that stuff. Just a unique and very laser focused perspective that you can bring to your client as far as selling commercial property through the Crexi auction platform. Easy for me to say. It's like you saying Inland Empire earlier.
Yeah, it's like
5 times fast.
Just get it out.
Well, thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it. Always great to connect with you. And for all of our viewers, commercial CRE Power Hour. Sorry, see, now I'm tongue-tied. CRE Power Hour is the 2nd and 4th Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We've been doing this show for about 2 years now. It's so much fun, and we love to bring cutting edge and successful, powerful people for you to listen to and learn from. And have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much for watching.
It's been so much fun.
Lisa Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.